The Guardian's Curse, a complete retelling. The anime opens with an absolutely brutal scene introducing us to a little girl who's getting her ass kicked by her own father. The guy, operating at a toxic level that would make a nuclear reactor jealous, locks the poor kid in some kind of dark cellar like she's a discounted wine bottle he's trying to age. But shortly after, she manages to find a way out and runs into a boy who immediately starts apologizing profusely for not stepping up and helping her earlier. Right off the bat, we discover the girl's name is Susune, and the boy introduces himself as Jinta, who, as you've probably already guessed, is the badass protagonist of our story. Soon after, we realize the girl has a sinister demonic eye, and she's already throwing shade at Jinta, telling him to back off because if her father catches them together, Jinta's also going to get an epic beating. But Jinta, acting like a good big brother, grabs her hand and the two of them bolt from that hellhole. They arrive at a completely abandoned cabin in the middle of nowhere, but since the cold was at an unbearable level, our protagonist can't take it anymore and passes out right there on the floor like a dropped sack of potatoes. After this blackout, he wakes up being carried on the shoulders of a man we come to know as Motovaro. This dude was the hero who saved both their asses, and he quickly arrives with them at a village. The guy explains to the kids that this village basically lives off working the furnaces and forging swords, the pure essence of epic craftsmanship. Shortly after, they arrive at Motovaro's house, and we notice he has a daughter. The man tells the girl that from now on, the protagonist and his sister are going to live there with her. The little girl gets hyped as hell, all emotional, and introduces herself to the new residents with the name Shirayuki. Later, in the silence of the night, we see that Jinta can't sleep worth a damn and keeps watching Motovaro cleaning a sword. The kid asks if he's a warrior, but the guy responds that actually, he's a guardian, since his only life objective is to defend everything he considers precious. The next day, the kids go to the river, and after a full day of pure fun and chaos, we see that Jinta and Susune are getting happier and more radiant in this new home. On the way back to the house, Jinta asks if it was Shirayuki's mother who gave the green light for them to stay with her family. She confirms yes, and says her mother is still at the sanctuary, since apparently her crown is nothing less than the Princess of Divinity. Besides that, Shirayuki continues saying she's clearly the priestess of the fire goddess, and because of this high-ranking position, only the village chief, her father, and the personal guardian can have contact with her. The main reason is that other mere mortals can't see her so as not to soil her purity by relating to the outside world. And to wrap it up, she says it's been many years since she's been able to see her own mother, and you can tell she doesn't like talking about the subject much, since she cuts the conversation out of nowhere and tells them to continue walking. After a good amount of time in the chronology, we see our protagonist practicing swordsmanship with Motovaro's blade, with the master landing a hit on him since Jinta is still at that beginner level learning the basics. After they finish the day's training, Motovaro warns that he needs to leave for work. Shirayuki stays there giving consolation to the protagonist, which makes him all embarrassed with the girl's attention. At that moment, his sister arrives, and the two girls announce that it's already time to grab some food. Several years pass in the time skip, and we see a much older and imposing Jinta gathered with the most important figures of the Kodono village. The bigwigs are congratulating him for taking down another demon, since now he's finally become the official guardian of the princess. Jinta mentions that the demon tried to infiltrate the village disguised as a human in a pretty shady espionage plan. Motovaro, who was there in the corner now with a much older appearance, comments that the creature probably wanted to attack the princess because devouring a priestess's liver can give demons the benefit of immortality. However, one of the women who was at the meeting raises the ball that maybe what the demons really want is the 𝐂𝐴𝐴𝐵, a sacred sword that's given to each princess, since for the monsters, it must be a legendary and very valuable item. A short time later, Motovaro explains that this is a mystical blade that doesn't lose its edge or durability for over 1,000 years, the most overpowered item on the server. A guy named Kiyomasa says they don't need to worry because the princess has 2 elite guardians protecting her. Next, Motovaro warns that it's past time for them to leave, so everyone gets out of there. At this moment, Jinta is alone with the princess. Then Shirayuki comes out, who was hiding in some curtains, and Jinta tries to treat her with all that formality, but the girl tells it straight. But when they're just the two of them, there's no need for that, since they've known each other since they were kids, and there's no reason to act like strangers. Upon hearing from Jinta that he'll always be with her to protect her, the girl turns red and lets out a side smile. Shirayuki warns the protagonist that someone is waiting for him, and soon takes him to where Susune is. The girl was there taking a nap, waiting for the village council meeting to end, but Jinta, in rigorous brother mode, says she shouldn't be there since no other guardian besides him can have this access to the princess. So he gives her a scolding and says she can't just hang around there. Suddenly, he hears someone coming, so the girl gets out of there, and soon after the princess comments that Susune is a good girl, and that he shouldn't heat up his head so much about her. Motovaro arrives at the room and says he needs to continue a serious conversation with Shirayuki, so the girl asks the protagonist to withdraw so she can talk alone with her father. The scene changes, and we go straight to the past, in a flashback where a funeral takes place. We discover that Shirayuki's mother kicked the bucket, and the girl tells the protagonist that now she's going to have to take on the position of Princess of Divinity. But she's in a major funk because she knows this means she won't be able to see Jinta as frequently anymore. But Jinta, gathering courage, tells her to train hard and become the strongest warrior of all to be able to solo any demon, exactly like her father did, just to be able to become her official guardian. In another scene cut, we see a bunch of demons perched on a tree, and a woman mentions they had a vision where someone appears with an absurdly high fighting power. The next day, we see the protagonist at home, and his sister wakes up at that moment. We notice the girl has her demon eye showing, so Jinta already warns that she needs to cover it up. Here, we realize the guy's dilemma. He lives to terminate demons, but has to protect his own sister, who has monster blood in her veins. Jinta says he needs to go to the sanctuary soon to meet the princess, but Shirayuki appears there by surprise. Jinta is startled since she shouldn't be going out like this because demons could attack. But the girl explains that the village chief is aware of everything and that she did this just to spend some quality time with Jinta. His sister gets all hyped because now they'll be able to have lunch together like a family. After some time, everyone's there having lunch, but Susune starts messing around saying Jinta's cooking is a total disaster. Jinta, trying to maintain authority, says that if needed he'll have to use the hard hand with her. But Shirayuki and Susune laugh and say he'd never have the guts to lay a finger on her, challenging the guy. She even provokes saying, "Hit me if you're man enough." But Jinta looks at that adorable sister and realizes it's impossible to harm her, which makes the two burst out laughing at his face. A little later, he gets ready because he needs to escort the princess, says goodbye to his sister, and says he'll be back later. As Jinta walks with Shirayuki, the village people are jaw-dropped since they've never seen him accompanied by a girl. They arrive at a woman named Chitose because apparently they went there to eat. Chitose asks who Shirayuki is, and Jinta responds that she's just an old friend, which makes Chitose not even suspect that this is the same sweet little girl he met years ago. The woman comes back with the skewers to grill for the two, and you can see she's kind of tense. Jinta comments to Shirayuki that people now don't look at him anymore as that kid from back in the day, but as the current guardian of the princess. After a long chat, the two go to the river, that same place where years ago she gave the news that she would become princess. Out of nowhere, she drops a bomb, says she's going to have to marry 𝐂𝐨𝐴, which leaves Jinta in shock. She explains that the village chief talked to her and says that because of the constant attacks, she needs to guarantee an heir, basically the same fate her mother had. She still adds that the guy is an elite guardian and has Kadono blood, so one day he's going to run the whole damn thing. Finally, she says this marriage is an agreement made for the good of the village, and she accepted because she knows that no matter how much she likes Jinta, he would never run away with her to another place. Jinta confirms the obvious. He swore to protect her as princess and couldn't accept the suitcase any other way, because that would be the same as throwing away all the sword training he's done since childhood. The girl understands perfectly and says he's just like her, since both chose to bury their own feelings in exchange for fulfilling their responsibilities. In a parallel scene, we can observe that Susune is at a bizarrely high level of worry, the kind where your heart is already beating in your throat. The next day, our protagonist appears again in a summit meeting, and the princess drops the incident report. They spotted 2 demons in the Forbidden Forest, and the mood turns sour for real. Because of this, Shirayuki gives the order for 𝐂𝐴 to stay in the rear guard protecting the village, while Jinta receives the mission to go there into the middle of the woods to end the race of these creatures. As soon as the protagonist leaves to fulfill his duty, he's stopped by 𝐂𝐴, who comes with that crooked talk saying he's already in the know that Jinta knows about his thing with Shirayuki. Jinta tries to keep it classy and says he doesn't care, that his only interest is being the shield of the princess and the village. But 𝐂𝐴 doesn't stop and says he knows the protagonist is also crazy about the girl. Jinta decides it's not worth wasting time with this bad vibe and takes off to hunt the demons once and for all. In another scene cut, Susune continues in that funk of worry when out of nowhere the demon who was watching in the tree the other day appears and introduces herself as Clairvoyant Demon. But to make gossip easier here, let's just call her Claire. Going back to Jinta, as he walks through the forest, he suffers a surprise attack, but our hero tanks the hit and asks where the other demon is, receiving as a response that his partner is already on the way to Kadono to wreak terror. The real fight starts, and after a lot of punch trading and dodging, the protagonist ends up taking some damage, but retaliates with everything and manages to sever one of the creature's extremities with his sword. The demon is confused about how a human can wield a weapon with such fury, and Jinta tells it straight. He does this to protect the people he loves. It's at this moment we discover the monster's name is Assimilation Demon, the demon of assimilation. Over with Susune, Claire starts exchanging ideas with the girl and reveals that, just like her, Claire is also a demon. She throws out some bait, saying Susun's brother is running mortal danger and that only she can save his ass, so she needs to go along. The girl gets kind of suspicious in that scammed out, but Claire touches her finger to her forehead and shows a fragment of the future, a heavy vision where Shirayuki appears undressing in front of 𝐂𝐨𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆. Susun is disconcerted without understanding what madness that is, and Claire explains she has the power to see the future and transmit these images. After seeing this traumatic spoiler and hearing all the bullshit talk, Susune ends up being convinced and goes with the demon's flow. Back to Jinta. He's on the edge of a river fighting against the assimilation demon, and the protagonist asks if the creature really wants to continue this war against humanity. The demon confirms and explains he has the power of assimilation, revealing that the arm he still has belonged to another demon, which allowed him to modify his bone structure and multiply his physical strength to an absurd level. Jinta launches into the attack, but the demon, in a brutal blow, rips off the protagonist's left hand. In pure desperation and adrenaline, Jinta manages to grab a fragment of his sword that had broken and drives the piece straight into the demon's chest. The creature falls to the ground defeated, and in his last words, reveals that there exists another demon who can predict the future up to 170 years ahead and who saw the emergence of a demon king called 𝐾𝐨𝐵, who will govern all the lands of Kadono. He finishes saying the demon king already lives among them, and Jinta goes into total shock remembering that his own sister is one of these beings. He realizes the reason the two demons came to the village was precisely because of her. Before dying, the demon says he's going to give one last gift, and his severed arm jumps and fuses to Jinta's face. Meanwhile, in another scene, 𝐂𝐨𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 and Shirayuki are about to do the nasty for real, but the girl is visibly insecure because her heart belongs to the protagonist. Even so, she accepts her role as princess, gathers courage, and starts approaching the guy, but it's at this exact instant that Claire appears with Susun and reinforces that the vision of the future wasn't fake news, leaving Susune in shock with the scene. Going back to Jinta, he wakes up and realizes his arm that had been ripped off is back there, regenerated in a bizarre way. He notices the demon disappeared and looking at the village realizes the place is completely in flames. The protagonist takes off running toward the princess, while we see Susune at an altissimo level of disappointment with Shirayuki, because the girl wanted to see her brother and friend together since they've known each other since kids and were always buddies. The girl rips off the eye bandage, releasing her total demonic power, while Claire continues manipulating the girl's mind with poisonous words for her to explode with hatred toward Shirayuki. At this moment, Susune emanates a sinister dark aura and transforms into a powerful blonde-haired woman. 𝐂𝐨𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 tries to play hero and defend the princess, but Claire plants her beak on him and leaves him unconscious, saying the beef now is just between the girls. Jinta arrives right at this moment and Shirayuki throws herself in his direction, but the protagonist is in a state of absolute shock upon seeing Susune cut the princess's head clean off without a shred of remorse. Not satisfied, Susune starts slashing the fallen body, which makes Jinta attack in the same instant. After dodging the blow, Susune says she did him a favor since Shirayuki was going to marry another and she spared her brother the suffering of seeing his beloved with another man. Jinta, with his heart broken, says she ruined an entire people who welcomed him with love. He goes for his sister who doesn't understand why he's acting like this, and at this instant, Jinta begins to hate the girl with all his might. The protagonist's arm begins to emanate a dense darkness, and his eyes turn red like a demon's. Susune remembers Jinta had never been capable of hurting her, but his hatred now is so great that he manages to land a hit on her. She gets up, and when Jinta charges a second mortal attack, Claire gets in front to protect Susune, being hit full on and becoming gravely injured. This gives the necessary time for Susune to flee, but before going, she screams to the world that she hates everyone and is going to end everything that exists. Claire starts laughing, saying she fulfilled her mission and ends up disappearing upon dying. Jinta runs, grabs Shirayuki's body, crying and lamenting for not having managed to be the guardian she needed. After a few days pass, we see the protagonist preparing to leave, remembering the golden moments he lived with his sister and with Shirayuki. Motovaro appears to talk, and Jinta warns he's going to leave the village to prepare for the day Susune returns to destroy the world. Motovaro asks him not to let hatred be the motor of his life, and comments that despite him having become a demon, he still managed to keep his human side intact. He hands a sword to Jinta, and upon drawing from the sheath, the protagonist realizes it's the legendary 𝐂𝐴𝑟𝒦. Jinta hesitates, thinking he shouldn't take the village's treasure, but Motovaro insists, saying the princess tradition ended and the sword would just be gathering dust, and that for sure Shirayuki would want him to use it. Jinta gets thoughtful and the man ends up kneeling before him, asking forgiveness that Jinta loved the girl and that he himself, through power, ended up pushing his daughter toward 𝐂𝐨𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆. The protagonist consoles him and begins his walk out of Kadono. Chitose observes from afar and starts crying upon seeing the hero leaving. but Jinta sends a goodbye and promises he'll return to eat the mochi she prepares. Sometime later, the scene shifts to a city where the protagonist talks with an elderly man called Yuso, but soon a guy called 𝐂𝐨𝐧𝐭𝐚𝐭𝐨 arrives. The old man leaves the scene, warning that 𝐂𝐨𝐭𝐴 has some stuff to tell. Jinta says Yuso commented about an adopted daughter he loves very much and who's being threatened by a demon. But 𝐂𝐨𝐴 corrects the information. The real reason for the contract is to protect a girl named Natsu, who's about to turn 13 and seems to be the new target of darkness. Jinta is now at bounty hunter level, who doesn't have time for games. And this new mission in Edo started with a heavy climate already like a horror movie. 𝐂𝐨𝐴 opens up and says the situation is getting bizarrely out of hand. It's been exactly 3 days since a demon appeared in the mansion garden of Natsu, repeating the same sinister phrase incessantly, saying he would take back his daughter. In few words, the monster put in his head the delusion that Natsu is his offspring and doesn't want to let go of the bone no matter what, treating the girl as if she were lost property. In the middle of this tense chat, Natsu herself appears and look, rewind warns you. The girl is pure essence of brat and arrogance. She arrives with both feet on the chest, treating Jinta like he's nothing, wanting to expel the protagonist from there based on screaming and telling 𝐂𝐨𝐴 to shut his mouth in a really rude way. She turns her back and gets out of there, leaving poor 𝐂𝐨𝐴 completely red with shame, trying to apologize for the explosive and unbearable temperament of the girl he's supposed to protect. Later, when night falls and silence dominates the city of Edo, we see Natsu in her room huffing with rage and ready to crash on the bed when suddenly 𝐂𝐨𝐴 appears outside the door. He explains that since she can't stand Jinta and doesn't want the protagonist even painted gold nearby, he himself will have to figure out how to do her personal guard during the early morning. They exchange some words with Natsu still being kind of grumpy, but the peace lasts less than a TV commercial. Suddenly, the girl starts hearing that cavernous voice of the demon echoing in the walls. In the hallway, right in front of 𝐂𝐨𝐴, the monster materializes out of nowhere with that nightmare appearance, repeating the mantra that he wants his daughter back. When the demon goes for 𝐂𝐨𝐴 to transform him into pate, Jinta appears like lightning, in a flash of speed the human eye can't even follow, and already severs the monster's arm with a dry blow. The protagonist still tries to be diplomatic and asks the villain's name, but upon realizing the creature has no consciousness and only knows how to moan disconnected phrases, Jinta cuts him in half without pity or mercy. The demon dies instantly and vanishes into black ashes. Natsu comes out of the room with eyes wide open and asks if he really defeated the beast, to which Jinta responds with that coldness of someone who's seen everything. When you end a demon, it simply disappears from the map. Not even the body is left to tell the story. The next day, the climate is calmer, and we see 𝐂𝐨𝐴 and Jinta drinking tea while trying to process the events. Jinta, who's no fool, asks 𝐂𝐨𝐴 to talk a bit more about Natsu's past because something there wasn't adding up. 𝐂𝐨𝐴 then tells a raw story. Natsu's true parents were very distant relatives of Yuso, which means the old man isn't the girl's biological father. Actually, her parents died a long time ago, leaving the girl an orphan. The guy also reveals a tragic detail about Yuso. His wife was murdered by a demon, and his biological son, instead of taking on responsibilities, simply took off from the village and never gave a sign of life again. It was because of this loneliness and this emptiness in his chest that Yuso decided to adopt Natsu and raise her as if she were his own blood. Later, Yuso and Natsu talk about Jinta's arrival. The girl even thanks him for hiring a bodyguard, but asks why so much fear. Yuso confesses that Edo is infested with demons, and that he heard about a skilled swordsman who's cleaning the area in exchange for payment, and this guy was precisely our protagonist. The next day, we see Natsu in a rare moment of affection, leaning on her adoptive father's lap. But her mind is far away, thinking about all the horror stories she's already heard about the creatures of the night. When night returns to reign, Jinta and 𝐂𝐨𝐴 are doing guard duty outside when Natsu decides to come out to talk. She says she's going to trust her life to Jinta only because her father trusts him, and confesses how much she loves Yuso for having welcomed her since she was small. Jinta takes advantage of the emotional opening and asks about Yuso's disappeared son, but the girl's attitude changes in a snap. She starts screaming, saying the guy is a coward who abandoned home and that Jinta doesn't have the right to touch on this subject. After the dust settles and Jinta apologizes, she asks a question that leaves the protagonist thoughtful. Can a child be born between a demon and a human? Jinta confirms yes, but soon notices the fear in her eyes. Natsu thinks she herself is a demon's daughter since the creatures always appear calling for her. Jinta, acting like a master, explains that Monster wasn't her mother at all. He details the forms of birth of these creatures. It can be through procreation between demons, through cruel acts against humans, or in a really bizarre way. They can be born out of nothing, generated purely by people's negative feelings like rancor, envy, and repressed hatred. As he finishes the explanation, a new demon begins to form right there in front of everyone. Jinta, with agility build at maximum, immobilizes the specter without killing it and asks if Natsu wants him to give the final blow. He reveals the naked truth. That demon was created by Natsu's own feelings. She was creating these monsters unconsciously to call her father's attention, since ever since the attack started, Yuso became much more glued to her. Jinta warns that if she doesn't change what's in her heart, the monster will be reborn infinite times. Natsu enters desperation, crying and realizing she doubted Yuso's love, understanding that creature was the representation of her own insecurities. Jinta calms her down, saying that although the creature came from her, it doesn't define who she is. However, Jinta reaches the conclusion that if it were only because of the girl's feelings, the phenomenon would have already stopped. He remembers Yuso's wife's story and realizes that demon was a hybrid of Natsu's feelings with another person's rancor. He soon associates this with the nefarious influence of his sister, Susune. With a sad look, he says goodbye to the creature and cuts it with a single sword movement. The next day, Jinta says goodbye to Natsu, giving valuable advice for her to always value the father she has, and departs for his next journey in Edo. Sometime later, Jinta appears at a restaurant demolishing a plate of noodles. The owner is a super friendly guy who works with his daughter, Ofu. The owner jokes that Jinta is the most loyal customer, coming to eat there 5 days straight at a restaurant that lives empty. Jinta pays the bill, and when asked about his profession, he responds with sincerity that he's a demon hunter. The owner cracks up laughing, thinking it's the joke of the year, but when Jinta turns to leave, the owner drops tense information. They found slashed bodies with no sword marks, as if a wild beast had done the job. Besides that, the number of missing people doesn't match the corpses found, which indicates something very sinister is going on near Shimotsuki Bridge. Ofu asks him to be careful, but Jinta gives that confident protagonist response. "I'm not a child for this type of warning." At night, Jinta is at Shimotsuki Bridge waiting for the creature's appearance, but realizes the demon is smarter than he thought. The protagonist is about to give up when he hears a woman's scream and runs desperately to the location. Upon arriving, he finds several injured men with deep gashes, but realizes it's a trap right away. All the men are victims, and the voice he heard was just a vocal lure. The demon uses a female voice as bait to attract victims. Suddenly, Jinta is attacked by something invisible, but he manages to block all attacks using his elite reflexes. He then decides to use his own demon power to expand his senses and find the hidden enemy. He realizes the opponent's special ability is total invisibility. Without thinking twice, Jinta lands a precise hit on the invisible specter, forcing it to reveal itself. The protagonist points his sword and asks the enemy's name before sending it packing. The demon introduces itself as Mosuke, and surprising Jinta, he begs not to die, saying he didn't want to fight anyone and that he was also there hunting demons. Mosuke explains he only attacked Jinta because he felt the demonic aroma emanating from him and thought the protagonist was the bridge assassin. Jinta, realizing the guy isn't a mindless monster, decides to spare his life. Mosuke suggests they talk somewhere else and takes him to his house, explaining that many demons like him prefer to live disguised as humans in the middle of society. Mosuke assumes a human form and confesses he's already lived more than a century observing humanity, revealing himself as a superior class demon with knowledge that can change the course of Jinta's journey. After all that confusion that went down at the bridge, our protagonist, Jinta, looks fixedly into Mosuke's eyes, and in a moment of pure intuition from someone who's seen a lot of shit in this world, he says he fully trusts his words about not being the real killer. Mosuke, who was already used to being judged only by his monstrous appearance, feels an enormous weight coming off his back and thanks from the bottom of his soul for having found someone who finally gave him the benefit of the doubt. Jinta then comments that, shortly before the confrontation, he heard acute screams of a woman echoing through the night, which makes Mosuke fry his neurons and reach the logical conclusion that the real culprit has a gentlemanly behavior pattern. The bastard only slashes men while depriving women of their freedom, kidnapping them for some dark purpose. At this instant, the climate gets heavy, and Mosuke can't take the emotional pressure, starting to cry tears of blood while explaining to Jinta that his own wife was one of this monster's victims. It's been exactly 1 month since his beloved simply vanished from the map, and after days of a desperate and agonizing search, she was found lifeless, floating in the cold waters of the river. Mosuke opens his heart in a way we rarely see in a demon, saying that woman was the only human in all his secular existence who truly accepted him, loving him exactly for what he was inside despite his dark nature. The demon begins to demonstrate a dangerous mixture of impotence and volcanic rage, swearing he's going to grind whoever's responsible for all this. Taken by this desire for justice, Mosuke makes a partnership proposal. He wants to work in duo with Jinta because he needs to taste revenge with his own hands. The protagonist gives that cold analysis of the situation and ends up accepting the new partner's petition. During the next few days, the two become true investigation machines, turning over every dark alley of Edo to collect information. But the assassin is too slick, and they couldn't find anything useful to lead them to the villain's lair. Sometime later, to give that mental breather, the two decide to have some sake while shooting the breeze about Jinta's complicated life. The protagonist confesses he became a demon hunter purely for financial interest, since humans pay good money for this service. But he also reveals his background plan is to strengthen himself to be able to stop one specific demon in the future, clearly referring to his sister Susune. Jinta opens up and says he used to be a common human, but ever since those demons manipulated Susune's mind for her to commit that atrocity against Shirayuki, he ended up suffering a mutation and transforming into this hybrid creature. Mosuke, curious, asks why he wants to merely stop this demon instead of ending it like he does with all the others. Jinta closes his eyes, remembers his sister's face, and responds he'll only be able to decide what to do at the exact moment when he's face to face with her. To change the mood, Jinta asks what Mosuke intends to do with his life after revenge is consummated. The demon responds in a melancholic way that he just wants to live in absolute peace, taking care of his wife's grave and living a quiet life without more conflicts. The next morning, we see Jinta arriving at Ofu's restaurant, and the girl already asks how the investigation is going. The protagonist, with that face of someone who didn't sleep at all, responds the information harvest was a total disaster. But then, at an unexpected moment, Jinta starts praising Ofu out of nowhere, saying people around must be blind for not noticing how beautiful the waitress is. These words leave the girl redder than a bell pepper, while the owner, her father, enters a state of shock hearing the protagonist throwing this pickup line in front of him. Jinta still doubles down that out of every 10 men who enter that place, at least 8 must find her wonderful. The owner gets all emotional because he'd never seen his daughter so close to a man, but Ofu, dying of embarrassment, tells the old man to stop bothering Jinta. The protagonist comments her father loves her too much, and Ofu takes advantage of the hook to ask how his relationship with his own father was. Jinta drops the bitter truth, saying he had to run away with his sister because the old man was too violent with Susune. Ofu asks if he feels hatred toward his father for that, and Jinta says today he understands his position, so he holds no grudge. In the early morning of the next day, Jinta and Mosuke return to the lookout post at the bridge, still frustrated. Suddenly, Jinta spots Ofu walking alone in the dimness, caressing some flowers on the street. The two partners think the same thing. It's madness for a girl to be walking alone with the assassin on the loose. They approach, and Mosuke activates his ability and becomes invisible. Jinta approaches the girl and says he's going to accompany her back for safety, but before they continue, Ofu shows the cherry blossoms she was admiring. She starts giving a class on botany, and we realize the girl is a true encyclopedia about plants, demonstrating impressive technical knowledge. The protagonist insists on taking her to the restaurant because the owner must be dying of worry. On the way, Ofu notices Jinta is very tense and suggests he try to relax, but the protagonist responds he's too focused on fulfilling his extermination objective. Suddenly, the girl points to some medicinal flowers Jinta recognizes right away. He comments a longtime friend ate a lot of those flowers to relieve pain. Ofu makes a sincere compliment, saying Jinta has many beautiful facets and asks him to open his eyes more to the world around him. They finally arrive at the restaurant, and Jinta says goodbye, with the promise she'll have someone to teach him more about flowers during the day. As soon as she enters, Mosuke reappears, saying he was spying on the romantic vibe and calls the protagonist back to work. A little later, while patrolling the bridge, an unknown girl passes by Jinta, and disaster happens. Something moves in the shadows with insane speed, and the attack hits Mosuke full on, who falls to the ground spurting blood, while the true demon assassin finally reveals his horrendous face. The monster launches against Jinta with bestial fury, but the protagonist blocks the impact with his demonic arm. The assassin tries to divert focus to the civilian girl, but Mosuke, even injured, manages to protect her. Jinta takes advantage of the opportunity and launches into a ferocious counterattack, but the demon manages to defend the blow and flees into darkness, showing he's an elite opponent. Jinta realizes this enemy's build is far superior to everything he's faced until now. Mosuke, who went back to being invisible, warns he's going to follow the creature's trail very carefully to locate its lair. Meanwhile, the girl who was saved asks for help getting up, and when Jinta looks at her, he takes an epic shock. It's Natsu. He can't believe it because it seems like yesterday he helped her father, but 3 years have already passed. Here it becomes clear that the time perception of a half-demon like Jinta is totally distorted. Natsu comments Jinta continues with the same face as always since his aging is extremely slow. Jinta asks what she's doing on the street at this hour, and she explains she was just making a delivery from the shop. At this moment, 𝐂𝐨𝐧 arrives all worried and already starts asking if the two were on a romantic date. Jinta cuts his buzz and warns Natsu just escaped a demon attack, which leaves 𝐂𝐨𝐴 in shock. Before Jinta leaves, 𝐂𝐨𝐴 gives a valuable tip. He says if the protagonist is looking for a monster nest, he should check out the Inara temples, an abandoned place where people swear they hear women's voices screaming inside during the early morning. The scene changes, and we see Mosuke pursuing the demon assassin who just kidnapped another victim. He manages to follow the trail to Inara Temple, and upon entering, he's met with a scene of pure horror. The demon is already devouring the girl. Mosuke tries a surprise attack, but the assassin is a wall of force, and with a single movement leaves Mosuke gravely injured, on the verge of death. The demon assassin leaves the location with an air of absolute superiority. Jinta arrives soon after, and finds his partner in a state that's agony to see. Mosuke apologizes for being a bard and hands Jinta a special sword he was keeping, a weapon from Kodono that will be the key to piercing the monster's defense. In the last moment of connection, Mosuke asks Jinta to absorb what's left of his power. Jinta activates his demonic arm, and upon touching his friend's head, a flood of memories pass before his eyes. We see all of Mosuke's happy moments with his human wife and the pure love they shared. Jinta feels the pain deep in his chest, thanks his partner, and swears he'll fulfill the revenge promise. Mosuke vanishes into particles of light. During the next few days, the tension in Edo only increases, and we see the creature has a sick obsession with women, kidnapping them just to satisfy its macabre hunger in the cursed nest. Until the day arrives when the monster brings another victim to the temple, but this time Jinta was already there, camouflaged. In a movement so fast the monster didn't even see, the protagonist severs the monster's arm before it even touches the woman. Jinta lets out that sarcastic smile and says, "The creature has the intelligence of an irrational beast for always returning to the same crime scene." And now, with the upgrade of abilities he inherited from Mosuke, Jinta activates invisibility, disappearing from the enemy's sight and preparing the ground for a slow and painful execution, showing that his fallen friend's revenge will finally be collected with interest and monetary correction. Without wasting time, Jinta launches against the creature in a movement not even the human eye follows, and with a surgical thrust rips the demon's head clean off. But here comes the bizarre detail. Even decapitated, the creature continues alive, which gives the perfect opening for our protagonist to interrogate the beast. He asks if there's someone else behind this mess, because the bodies found at the bridge don't match the number of missing people, and if the demon were the only culprit, he never would have found Mosuke's wife's body in that state. Jinta then activates his demonic eye to read the creature's soul, and the truth falls like an anvil. He sees memories of a girl desperately trying to possess another woman's body to be able to return to the world of the living. The protagonist asks her real name, and the head responds her name is Radsu, nothing less than the late Mosuke's own wife, who ended up becoming a demon after death. A few days pass, and the climate at the owner's restaurant is also wilted. He and Ofu confess they miss Jinta since the guy disappeared a while ago. The owner thinks, since the bridge demon already went to the devil's lap, the protagonist has no more reason to appear. But Ofu remembers Jinta mentioned Edo is still infested with monsters. Meanwhile, in the dead of night, we see two guys laughing and bragging about how they raped the city's women. They reach maximum audacity level by commenting how they took advantage of Mosuke's wife before she died. Their mistake was not realizing Jinta was listening to everything in the shadows. The protagonist appears like an executioner, and without exchanging half an idea, ends both of them on the spot. At that moment, Jinta feels the debt to Mosuke has been paid. He avenged his friend's wife by killing those truly responsible for her tragedy. A long time later, the story introduces us to a new character called 𝐂𝐨𝐧𝐭𝐚𝐭𝐨. He ends up bumping into Natsu at the owner's shop, and the owner himself tells us the boy comes from high military nobility. The next day, 𝐂𝐨𝐧𝐭𝐚𝐭𝐨 appears there for lunch but has a face like someone who hasn't slept in weeks. He unloads on the owner about having an older brother, but the owner gets confused, saying the Miura family has no other children besides him. The guy insists and asks if they've ever heard of Sadanaga Miura. But since nobody knows the name, 𝐂𝐨𝐧𝐭𝐚𝐭𝐨 gets into a state of deep sadness, feeling like he's going crazy because nobody else remembers his own brother's existence. Seeing the guy's suffering, 𝐿𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 suggests maybe 𝐵𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 can shed some light since he's a master at investigating strange things and hunting demons. And as if he were listening to the conversation, the protagonist enters the restaurant right on time, leaving 𝐂𝐨𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 impressed. While 𝐵𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 demolishes that food, the nobleman stays there hypnotized, waiting for a chance to speak. 𝐿𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 and 𝐵𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 start talking about how the olives and flowers are blooming, and the girl gets all emotional seeing the protagonist really became fascinated with what she taught about botany. But the romantic climate is cut by 𝐂𝐨𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆, who begs for 𝐵𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆's help. The protagonist, being short and blunt, says his work is killing demons, and that a missing brother has nothing to do with it, so he can't help. The guy leaves there devastated without saying a word. But 𝐿𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 and the owner get heartbroken and start begging 𝐵𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 to have compassion. They explain that ever since the brother disappeared, 𝐂𝐨𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 has been acting in a very bizarre way. 𝐵𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 gives it some thought, sighs, and ends up accepting the mission only because it was the restaurant owners who asked. Hours later, we see 𝐵𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 outside, drinking tea and eating mochi, when 𝒂𝐶𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 arrives to keep him company. They start talking about life, and 𝐵𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆, in a kind of touchy moment, asks if she's going to marry 𝐶𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 since she's 16 and at the age. 𝒂𝐶𝒏𝒄𝒆 almost chokes and says that although she's at the age for it, she sees 𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 only as an older brother. She reveals her father sometimes touches on the subject, but that 𝒂𝐿𝒆 will probably choose someone who guarantees the shop's future, like a rich samurai or a rich businessman. When she returns the question, 𝐵𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 says he's not looking for anything like that because he lives from one side to the other, hunting monsters. 𝒂𝐶𝒏𝒄𝒆 almost falls off her chair, discovering the protagonist is 31 years old, being much older than 𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆, and asks what's the secret to not aging. 𝒏𝒏𝒄𝒆 dodges the subject and says he needs to go hunt another demon. The girl says with his talent he could have a better job, but the protagonist confesses he doesn't have a specific reason for doing what he does. Before saying goodbye, she asks him to visit the shop more often. The scene changes to 𝒂𝐨𝒏𝒄𝒆's house, where he's stopped by his mother when trying to leave. She begs him to stop disappearing, reminding him he's the family's oldest son. The boy gets indignant and shouts there exists another brother above him, and after an ugly argument, he runs off. On the way, he has a quick flashback with this mysterious brother and keeps wondering where he got himself into, until 𝒏𝒄𝒆's voice brings him back to reality. The protagonist appears and says he decided to give the case a chance, but doesn't promise miracles. 𝒂𝐨𝒏𝒄𝒆 gets radiant just knowing someone finally believes him. 𝒏𝒄𝒆 says they need to talk seriously, and the two go to the protagonist's house. On the way, the boy asks if 𝒏𝒄𝒆 was ever a samurai, and 𝒏𝒄𝒆 explains the position he had in Kodono allowed sword use. 𝒂𝐨𝒏𝒄𝒆, who's a sword nerd, notices 𝒏𝒄𝒆's weapon is different from everything he's ever seen. The protagonist confirms it's the 𝒂𝒐𝒏𝒄𝒆, the sacred sword that protects the princess and sanctuary. Upon hearing the name, the nobleman almost has a fit because the 𝒂𝒐𝒏𝒆 is a 1,000-year legend. He asks to see the blade, but 𝒏𝒄𝒆 denies right away, making the boy apologize for the excitement. Getting back on track, 𝒂𝐨𝒏𝒄𝒆 says his brother Sadanaga Miura disappeared, and nobody, not even his own parents, remember he existed, treating the boy like he's mentally deluded. They end up going back to the owner's restaurant to continue the conversation, and the owner himself even complains this isn't a meeting place. But 𝒏𝒄𝒆 retorts, questioning that it's the perfect place since they themselves asked him to help the guy. 𝒂𝐨𝒏𝒄𝒆 reveals the brother disappeared shortly before spring without saying anything, and the only clue is he mentioned he would visit his daughter, and that 𝒂𝐨𝒏𝒄𝒆 found strange flowers in his room. 𝒏𝒄𝒆 gets intrigued by the flower detail, and the boy explains that although his brother hated botany, the room was full of flowers with a fortissimo and unknown aroma. 𝒏𝒄𝒆 decides they need to visit the family house to investigate the crime scene. The next day, 𝒏𝒄𝒆 arrives at the restaurant and finds 𝒂𝒂𝒏𝒄𝒆 there. The two start training some swordplay, and the owner starts provoking his daughter, saying 𝒂𝒂𝒏𝒄𝒆 is going to end up stealing 𝒏𝒄𝒆 for herself, which leaves the girl dying of embarrassment. 𝒂𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆, acting like a true wife alpha, enters the conversation saying Jinta has been very nice to her too. The owner turns up the climate and hands an object to Jinta, a 𝐂𝐨𝐧𝐭𝐚𝐭𝐨. He explains the Miuras are vassals of the shogun, and this item must be part of their equipment and can be a crucial clue. Jinta analyzes the object and realizes the mystery of the disappeared brother is much deeper than a simple disappearance. It seems someone or something is erasing Sadanaga's existence from people's memory, and the medicinal or aromatic flowers found in the room could be the key to understanding this mental manipulation. With 𝐂𝐨𝐧𝐭𝐚𝐭𝐨 finally having an ally who carries a 1,000-year sacred sword, the search for truth in Edo gains new breath. The protagonist realizes time is running and every second counts if he wants to save what's left of this family before the forgetting is total. Now, with the 𝐸𝑟𝑖 at his side and the support of the owner's restaurant, Jinta prepares to enter the Miura mansion and face whatever is hidden in the shadows of that noble lineage. 𝐂𝐨𝐧𝐭𝐚𝐭𝐨 starts suffering a bizarre dizziness and a vision of the past opens like a portal before them. We see a little girl playing happily while in the background her entire village is being consumed by a brutal fire. The girl sees her parents being transformed into barbecue and the entire village turned to ashes in a matter of hours. The few people who survived the disaster developed a terrifying fear of the child, believing she was cursed, and the tragedy ended up transforming the small orphan into a solitary demon who has nothing left in this world. The girl was desperate, and the memories jump in time, showing her much older, trying to return to the place where she lived but being psychologically tortured by bad memories of her own biological father. Back to Edo's present, 𝐂𝐨𝐭𝐴 is sprawled on the floor, surrounded by a somber aura that alters the environment's perception. Jinta materializes and asks if the boy got lost on the way to the room, but the nobleman is in complete shock with the sensation of oppression surrounding him. The protagonist explains they're trapped in a kind of residual illusion, caused by a demon girl who wanders aimlessly and reveals a disturbing fact. The Miura mansion was built exactly on top of the ruins of the old house that caught fire and killed the girl's family. Suddenly, the two begin to observe a projection of Sadanaga, the disappeared brother, talking and taking care of the demon girl. Even knowing she was a supernatural creature who'd lived there for over 100 years, Sadanaga decided to give her the love and affection nobody else gave, treating her like family despite the fire having taken everything. Sadanaga's brother tries to convince her to leave there, but the little girl refuses to abandon the garden because that's the only place where she feels safe. The guy then makes an epic promise, says when she finally understands what she lived through and decides to move forward, he'll depart with her. Since she continues denying leaving, the guy proposes she become his adopted daughter. Faced with her insistence on not leaving the garden, the guy makes the final decision to stay with her forever in that location. The brother's illusion fades, and 𝐂𝐨𝐭𝐴 in tears begs the girl's image to return Sadanaga. Jinta cuts the drama, saying it's useless to ask this of a past projection, and explains the flower mystery makes sense now. This demon's lair is a parallel world disconnected from our reality where spring flowers can sprout in autumn, and time runs at an absurdly faster speed than the real world. The demon girl then speaks directly with them, thanking 𝐂𝐨𝐭𝐴's brother for having changed her somber existence. She announces it's time to fulfill the promise to leave the garden, and upon releasing a ball she was carrying, she simply disappears, transporting Jinta and 𝐂𝐨𝐭𝐴 back to the physical reality of the room. 𝐂𝐨𝐭𝐴 is totally in shock, realizing his brother dedicated decades of an entire life to live inside a world created by a demon child's imagination. Hours later, the two meet at the owner's restaurant to process everything. 𝐂𝐨𝐭𝐴 did his homework and discovered there really was a fire in that region 200 years ago, confirming the theory that the Miura mansion had a spiritual connection with the demon girl. Jinta agrees with the logic and apologizes for not managing to bring the brother back home, but 𝐂𝐨𝐭𝐴 thanks from the bottom of his heart because now he finally has peace knowing his brother wasn't crazy, but a solitary hero. Before the boy leaves, Ofu makes that wife alpha comment, saying 𝐂𝐨𝐧𝐭𝐚𝐭𝐨 was an admirable person for saving a lost soul even if the world forgot. The boy cries again and leaves, but 𝐵𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆, who wasn't born yesterday, gets a flea behind his ear. He realizes something is very strange. 𝐂𝐴𝐧𝐭𝐴 called his brother 𝐂𝐴𝐴𝐧𝐭𝐴, but the demon in the vision called the man 𝐂𝐴𝐨𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆. The owner tries to give that classic deflection, saying it must just be a nickname, but 𝐵𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 starts connecting the dots. The protagonist knows demons don't lie blatantly. They just omit the truth. He notices 𝐂𝐴𝐴𝐧𝐭𝐴 from the vision didn't seem dead, and if the girl had become orphaned again, she wouldn't be smiling. 𝐵𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 launches the final theory. Since time passes fast in the garden, 𝐂𝐴𝐴𝐧𝐭𝐴 lived 20 years in there, while in the real world only a month passed. Upon leaving, he realized he was already an old man and couldn't return to noble life anymore. So he decided to found a restaurant and live as a common plebeian in the village. In the moment of total revelation, 𝐵𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 looks straight at the restaurant owner and calls him Miura Sadanaga. Unexpectedly, the owner stops everything, drops the cloth, and confesses. Yes, he's 𝐂𝐴𝐧𝐭𝐴's brother, but begs 𝐵𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 to keep the secret because he feels he lost the right to carry the Miura surname and knows his brother is now an adult who can walk on his own legs without needing him. The owner reveals there was no complex, heroic reason. He just stayed with the girl because he didn't want her to feel alone again. He then calls 𝐵𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 a demon, revealing he knows the protagonist's secret because he spent too much time coexisting with supernatural beings and recognizes one's smell from afar. 𝐵𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 is startled and asks if the girl from the vision is okay, and the response nobody expected happens. The demon girl is Ofu herself. The protagonist understands now why it was so easy for him and 𝐂𝐴𝐧𝐭𝐴 to enter the secret garden. Ofu gave permission. She looks at 𝐵𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 with a look of someone who's seen the world spin many times and says she's still learning to be a child, because in the real world she appears to be 20 years old. But in her internal chronology, almost 200 years of life have already passed. 𝐵𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 is there processing this temporal madness worthy of Interstellar and orders a bowl of noodles while reflecting on how time is a judge that doesn't forgive anyone. The mystery begins when Yuso pulls out a sinister demonic drawing and explains to 𝐵𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 the work is known as the 𝐂𝐴𝐧𝐭𝐴 print. The old man comments the rumors about this illustration are heavy. They say whoever created the drawing fell into an incurable disease right after a demon sold the idea to him. Yuso tells it straight to the protagonist and says, if the rumors that the drawing is cursed are real, he'll pay a fat note for 𝐵𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 to put an end to this print once and for all. A few hours later, 𝐵𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 arrives at the owner's restaurant, and Senge appears in total desperation, asking for help precisely with a torn copy of this same cursed drawing. The protagonist pulls out the version Yuso gave him and, comparing the two, realizes they're perfect clones. Ofu, all innocent, thinks it's just pretty art, but Senge cuts the mood, saying there are several copies circulating out there, sold by a theme merchant he knows well. He guarantees tracking down the artist will be easy. 𝐵𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 thanks for the help, and soon they depart for the merchant's location. While 𝐵𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 stays on lookout, Senge interrogates the vendor, who confesses he stopped commercializing the prints because of the bad reputation. He drops the gossip that one of the buyers was murdered, and after much conversation reveals the artist's lives in the Sakai neighborhood. 𝐵𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 thanks and warns from now on he's taking the mission alone. The protagonist arrives at the artist's house and after calling enters the room. The guy introduces himself as Saga and invites 𝐵𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 to tea, already noticing the protagonist heard the rumors about his debilitated health. 𝐵𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 asks if the illness has to do with the 𝐂𝐴𝐧𝐭𝐴 drawing, but the old man cracks up laughing, saying the rumors are pure fake news. Saga explains he doesn't draw like before simply because age arrived and his body is weak, which is normal. He reveals a detail that makes 𝐵𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 freeze. The name 𝐂𝐴𝐧𝐭𝐴 was given by a swordsman from Kodono, and says a long time ago a guy called Maudavaro visited him constantly. At this instant, Jinta looks at his 𝐂𝐨𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 sword and the memory trigger fires. He remembers when he was a child and a demon attacked the village. 𝐂𝒏𝒊𝒆 said he should protect Susune and Shirayuki above all and learn to control hatred. Back to the present, the protagonist asks SIGA to talk more about 𝐂𝒏𝒊𝒆 and confesses he's his adoptive father. SIGA is shocked to learn Jinta is his old friend's son and decides to open up, revealing 𝐂𝒏𝒊𝒆's life and the 𝐂𝐨𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 print are totally connected. SIGA enters a flashback from when he was young and arrived at a village where he met a mysterious woman who didn't reveal her name. He worked there a while and the lady kept praising his talent for drawings. It was at this time 𝐂𝒏𝒊𝒆 entered the scene, much younger and straight to the point, acting as the princess's guardian but hating being treated like a simple letter messenger. SIGA comments to Jinta his father was quite a complainer, and every year went to Edo just to badmouth everything he could, which leaves the protagonist incredulous since he always knew 𝐂𝒏𝒊𝒆 as a modest and calm guy. Getting back on track, SIGA explains the drawing represents that nameless woman from the village and the work was based on a real curse. Before telling the final truth, he asks what Jinta felt upon seeing the print. The protagonist, being sincere, says the drawing made him immediately remember Kadono's late princess. SIGA gets emotional and says Jinta is almost hitting the target, asking him to prepare for the weight of truth. SIGA explains 𝐂𝒏𝒊𝒆 kept going to Edo, complaining about life in Kadono, and his attitude with this priestess changed over the years. One day, 𝐂𝒏𝒊𝒆 arrived with a bizarre request. He wanted SIGA to draw the princess all the time, but using the nameless girl as reference. It happens that after a tragedy in the village, this lady moved to Kadono and then to Edo. Jinta gets everything and reaches the conclusion the drawing is the representation of 𝐂𝐴𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆, the former princess and mother of his old love Shirayuki. SIGA confirms he used 𝐂𝒏𝒊𝒆's details and his imagination to create the work. Jinta asks why the drawing gained the fame of being demonic, and SIGA explains 𝐂𝒏𝒊𝒆 himself said the princess was more demonic than a demon. The artist tried to make an uglier sketch, and since then his health began to decline, but he thinks it's just age coincidence. The main point is the 𝐂𝐨𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 drawing is the idealized version of the princess 𝐂𝒏𝒊𝒆 secretly loved. He shows one of the first sketches that exudes all the passion 𝐂𝒏𝒊𝒆 felt for the princess. He says after Shirayuki was born, 𝐂𝒏𝒊𝒆 stopped going to Edo, and the last time he appeared, he said he'd adopted a pair of siblings, referring to Jinta and Susune. Hours later, Jinta returns to the owner's restaurant and asks out of nowhere if the owner considers himself a good father. Ofu defends the old man right away, saying even though he's not perfect, he bleeds for the family. She asks if the protagonist discovered something in the investigation, and Jinta responds he met a facet of his adoptive father he'd never imagined. Jinta meets with Yuso and warns the drawing has nothing cursed, that the deaths were just coincidences and neighborhood rumors. Yuso is satisfied, congratulates the protagonist for the report, and promises payment after a toast. Months pass, and Jinta appears resting under a tree when a demon approaches asking him to buy time. The protagonist refuses, the creature attacks, and since the demon refuses to say its name, Jinta draws the 𝐂𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 and finishes the creature without thinking twice. Then a woman named Yokata appears who slaps Jinta because he used her as bait for the counterattack. She reveals she was a red light district woman who contracted a disease, started hating men, and almost became a demon from so much rancor. She asks if one day Jinta would end her if she loses her humanity. Jinta, in his coldest and most empty mode, says he doesn't work for free for anyone. Yokata leaves, and the next day Natsu and Ofu appear at a festival kind of sad because none of the boys wanted to accompany them because of work. They decide it'll be a women's day and end up stopping at an exotic flower stand. Ofu, botany master, explains those flowers serve to guide demons, but Natsu retorts saying nobody likes demons. She comments if it weren't for Jinta she'd be lost, remembering when he saved her 4 years ago. Natsu starts gushing praise for the protagonist, and Ofu notices the shine in her friend's eyes, joking she's in love. Natsu gets nervous, and both conclude Jinta is a complete mystery since he's too cold with feelings, leaving any romance at impossible difficulty level. Everything starts at the festival when one of the vendors decides to approach the girls in a very direct way. The guy introduces himself as 𝐂𝐨𝐴𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 Akitsu, and Ofu comments he's one of her regular clients. But Natsu, who wasn't born yesterday, gets a flea behind her ear. She doesn't believe that's his real name since 𝐂𝐨𝐴𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 Akitsu is the name of a legendary and very famous metal artisan. She tells it straight and says she hopes the boy does justice to the heavy name he carries. The guy shows some shells painted with all care, and Natsu actually thinks the work is decent. Akitsu suggests she buy it to give as a gift to someone she loves very much, but the girl denies right away, making Ofu start teasing her friend until she turns beet red. Natsu ignores the shells but ends up spotting a necklace with a sparrow pendant that's the cutest thing, deciding to take one despite finding the price kind of salty. Seeing her interest, Akitsu grabs a kanzashi, that hair accessory, and says he'll give it as a gift to her. Natsu accepts the freebie and the two say goodbye to the guy, continuing with the stroll. But later, in the dead of night, we see Jinta doing what he does best, hunting a random demon. After sending the creature to the devil's lap, he receives his payment and says goodbye to the contractor. While walking down the street, Yokata appears out of nowhere. She shows concern for the protagonist, analyzing if he's injured, and we discover she was the one who passed the tip about this job. Jinta, who's fair, hands her part of the fee. Before disappearing into the shadows, Yokata drops some tense gossip. Word is going around. There's another guy hunting demons in the area, and it's not Jinta. She explains the guy is like a diviner or exorcist who summons familiar spirits to do the dirty work. The protagonist gets kind of confused with this term, so she details the guy uses spiritual dogs and birds to shred the monsters. The next day, Jinta arrives at the owner's restaurant, and Ofu already warns Natsu is acting in a very bizarre way. Suddenly, Natsu appears all dreamy, approaches the protagonist, and with her face on fire says she was missing him like crazy. She grabs his hand, and it's clear the girl is hopelessly in love, at a level way above normal. Jinta asks what the hell happened, and Ofu tells that right after Natsu put the kanzashi in her hair, she fainted and woke up this love total way. The protagonist analyzes the accessory and doesn't see anything wrong at first glance. He returns the object, and as soon as Natsu puts it back, she jumps on Jinta's neck and gives him a tight hug. Everyone is in shock. Senge and 𝐂𝐨𝐴𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 enter the restaurant right on time, and the climate gets super heavy. 𝐂𝐨𝐴𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 almost has a fit seeing the scene. They start arguing and reach the conclusion that Akitsu is the culprit. Senge remembers the real 𝐂𝐨𝐴𝐵𝒄𝒊𝒆 Akitsu died ages ago, suggesting the vendor might be a demon, but the owner disagrees, saying he crossed paths with the guy and he seemed like a common human. Jinta decides he needs to have a little chat with this artisan, and after convincing Natsu to let go of his arm, he departs for the festival. All day, the protagonist searches, but Akitsu seems to have evaporated. When he decides to give up and go home, the artisan appears right behind him. Akitsu realizes right away Jinta is a demon and summons several black dogs from the shadows. Jinta remembers Yokata's warning and understands he's facing the other hunter. The dogs attack with fury. Jinta cuts them in half, but the creatures regenerate instantly. Realizing his cutting techniques aren't working, the protagonist has a stroke of genius. Instead of fighting the summons, he advances straight at the master. He lands a punch so powerful, it sends Akitsu flying far away. The dogs attack again, and Akitsu thinks he's won the match, but Jinta resurfaces without a scratch. The protagonist reveals the creatures were strong, but he managed to steal Akitsu's magic during the confrontation. Now Jinta himself summons the shadow dogs and makes Akitsu run. The artisan gets cornered, and Jinta threatens to devour his soul and steal his memories if he doesn't open his mouth. The artisan chickens out and asks Jinta to undo the summon first. When Jinta swallows the dog's souls, they go back to being mere pieces of paper. He explains he infuses objects with souls to create the spirits. He reveals he's the third disciple of the true Sameguru Akitsu, the master who created objects so perfect they gained their own soul. Jinta asks about Natsu's kanzashi. The artisan says it's a common object, but the protagonist retorts, saying the girl became another person, so the artisan hands another object for Jinta to take with him, saying this will solve the problem. Hours later, already at night, Jinta finds Natsu waiting for him outside the shop. He invites her for a walk, and after a deep conversation about Susune and the weight of the past, he hands the girl a kogai, a metal accessory. In a quick flashback, we see Akitsu explaining the kogai and kanzashi need to be reunited for balance to return. In the present, Natsu starts crying upon seeing the object, and as soon as she unites the two pieces, it transforms into a bird of blinding light that flew off to the sky. The girl faints on the spot. Akitsu appears and confirms now everything's okay. He explains the kanzashi and kogai were like siblings, and since they were separated, Natsu felt the emptiness, which she projected onto Jinta, thinking he was the brother she needed. By uniting the pieces, the object's soul completed itself and followed its path. Jinta confesses he thought the item was cursed. They exchange a few more words, and Akitsu says that although he respects Jinta, he'll continue killing demons if someone pays well. The protagonist agrees because deep down, the two think alike. The next day, Natsu returns to normal, but is in a state of deep depression because of the shame. Ofu comments her friend remembers every detail from the night before, every hug and every mushy word she said to Jinta. Natsu swears she'll never be able to look the protagonist in the eyes again from so much embarrassment. In another scene, Jinta is walking when Yokata approaches. She feels he's different, makes small talk. They hear a cuckoo bird's song, and the girl complains the creature doesn't let her sleep. Jinta remembers Akitsu's words about the light bird that went out searching for its flower, its pear. He smiles, realizing the spiritual cuckoo finally found what it was looking for. The story then takes a leap of decades into the future. We see a sanctuary where a mother named Yayoi talks with her daughter Miyaka. The mother explains the importance of finding the ideal man to maintain the family's sacred lineage. Miyaka is the new princess of divinity, and Yayoi reinforces she needs to focus on becoming an exemplary priestess. After the conversation, the mother leaves to cook, leaving the young princess reflecting on her destiny. The scene opens with Miyaka cleaning the sanctuary peacefully when our protagonist Jinta materializes in front of her. He asks if she's the local priestess, but the girl corrects, saying she's actually the princess of divinity. Jinta gets kind of lost in the character, but the penny drops when she mentions this is the tradition of Jinta Sanctuary. The protagonist asks her to repeat because he can't believe the place carries his name. He starts crying right there, realizing the former village chief kept his promise and transformed Jinta's story into an eternal legend, guaranteeing he'd always have a home to return to. He thanks the girl and leaves, leaving Miyaka without understanding anything. But hold on, because things get crazy now. The anime takes a quantum leap of 200 years, and we fall straight into modern Japan with schools, buildings, and Wi-Fi. And look at that bizarre coincidence. Miyaka is there at school with her friends. Jinta also appears there, and she looks at him with that face of, "I know you from somewhere." Worth remembering that since Jinta is an elite half-demon, he doesn't age even if millennia pass. He continues with the same face of someone who soloed the world in Edo. Later, Miyaka and her friend call Kaoru in the Academy Theater, where a play about the Edo era will take place. Jinta is there in a corner observing the spectacle. An old woman starts reciting the prologue. The curtains open, and suddenly we're transported back to the past. We see Naotsego meeting Yokata while hiding from the rain. The conversation doesn't flow much, and the girl leaves. But we realize the story the old woman is telling in the theater is the real-life 𝐿𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 and his crew led centuries ago. In the play, 𝐂𝐨𝐧𝐭𝐚𝐭𝐨 arrives at the restaurant and warns 𝐿𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 he has a new contract to hunt a demon in Sakarosa that same night. We return to the theater and Miyaka is almost snoring, finding the story total boredom. But the plot continues. 𝐂𝐨𝐽𝒭 returns to the place where he met Yokata and she appears. He tries to make small talk about a guy they saw, but she shuts him down, saying one shouldn't investigate a woman's life, especially if she's a courtesan. 𝐂𝐨𝐽𝒭 apologizes, saying he just wanted to see her again, but the climate gets heavy when a sinister silhouette emerges from the shadows. Yokata trembles with fear, but 𝐂𝐨𝐽𝒭 gathers courage and stands in front of her, making the figure disappear. The next day, 𝐿𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 is at the shop talking with Ofu and comments he failed the mission because the demon only appears when it rains. 𝐂𝐨𝐽𝒭 arrives all worked up, saying he's in love, but when he reveals the crush is a courtesan, Senga and Natsu almost fall off their chairs. Natsu has to explain they live in different worlds, but 𝐂𝐨𝒽𝒭 is determined to win the girl. The friends have nothing to do and start giving conquest tips to the nobleman, who thanks them and runs off to wait for his beloved. Ofu, being smart, gets worried. 𝐂𝐨𝒽𝒭 saw the woman in the rain. 𝐿𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 lost the demon in the rain, but the detail is it didn't rain in the city. Back to the present, the old woman in the theater philosophizes, saying people only see the visible, but the invisible reality is what counts. In the play's next scene, Yokata returns to the meeting point, but 𝐂𝐨𝒽𝒭 isn't there. The silhouette appears again and starts calling for her with the voice of someone she loved and lost. She runs toward the danger, but 𝐂𝐨𝒽𝒭 appears and stops her, warning that's not human. He draws his sword and says even though it's not a common demon, he's going to protect her. The anime makes a genius parallel between the real fight from the past and the play's choreography at the school. 𝐿𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 appears in the past, the creature disappears, and the protagonist explains it was just a cloud of thoughtless energy. 𝐂𝐨𝒽𝒭 confesses he thought the figure was his missing brother, while Yokata tries to bury bad memories. In modern Japan, Kaoru wakes Miyaka, who missed the play's ending. They go to a convenience store during intermission, and Miyaka gets mad because she needs to do a report about the work and slept through half of it. Her friend promises to help, and hours later they're in the classroom finishing the text. 𝐿𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆, student version, appears there and comments with that classic sarcasm that he doesn't understand how that story's protagonist seemed to be a complete useless. Kaoru starts debating the play's events while Miyaka laments having blacked out. The scene cuts to the past and we see 𝐿𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 defeating another demon. He reflects he doesn't hesitate anymore to use the sword, but realizes with bitterness the blood on his blade is getting darker and denser. The next day, he walks with Ofu, who's shocked to learn he soloed a dozen monsters in a single night. Later, Senga arrives at the owner's restaurant for a special celebration. He was named manager of Yuso's hardware store, SIGA. Everyone parties, and 𝐿𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 even uncorks special sake to celebrate his friend's success. The night is pure joy until Senga brings a sake that's trending, called Yukin's Last Snow. Natsu, being a polite girl, serves the protagonist, but when she herself goes to taste, she spits everything out immediately. She says the smell is terrible and the taste is unbearable. The others try it and find it just a bit strong, concluding Senga doesn't understand anything about good drinks. The owner saves the hangout, bringing lighter sake, and the party continues. Days later, 𝐿𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 leaves home and meets Yokata to pick up a new job. She says there are rumors of a replaced child, a sick child who would have been swapped for a demon while sleeping. She explains people are panicking with the rumors, and because of this fear, everyone started drinking heavily, which explains why Yukin's Last Snow sake became a craze. 𝐿𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 asks if she's tried it, and she says clients love the exquisite flavor. 𝐿𝒏𝒄𝒊𝒆 gets a flea behind his ear, remembering when he tried it. The drink seemed like pure sewage juice. Jinta realizes there's something very wrong with this 𝐂𝐭𝐴𝐧𝐿 last snow sake, and that the city's collective hysteria might be being fed by something supernatural hidden in the bottles. Jinta wastes no time, already tells Yokata to investigate deeply the origin of this 𝐂𝐭𝐴𝐧𝐿 last snow sake, warning her to take extra care because the city's climate is too strange. A little later, winter arrives with everything, and we see the protagonist trying not to turn into a popsicle, warming himself by a small furnace at his house. Out of nowhere, Natsu appears at his door, leaving Jinta in shock since he wasn't expecting the visit. The girl says she got the address from Ofu, and as soon as she set foot at the entrance, she heard some bizarre screams. She asks, dying of fear, what that noise was, and Jinta explains it's just the next-door neighbor. The guy drinks beyond measure and turns into an aggression monster with his own family. The protagonist tries to change the subject and asks what brought Natsu there. She sits down and the girl starts venting about 𝐂𝐴𝐧𝐭𝐴. The kid simply quit his job and now lives thrown in dive bars, downing everything. Natsu reveals this self-destructive behavior started right the day after his promotion party and begs Jinta to accompany her to these dives to try to bring 𝐂𝐴𝐧𝐭𝐴 back to reality. Jinta accepts the mission and the two depart for the location. Upon arriving, the alcohol smell is so strong you can get dizzy just from breathing. Natsu spots 𝐂𝐴𝐧𝐭𝐴 and already arrives, giving that epic scolding. But the guy is so wasted, he starts offending the girl with super heavy words. The argument heats up and Jinta needs to intervene before the worst happens. 𝐂𝐴𝐴𝐧, totally out of himself, tries to attack the protagonist, but Jinta is way more built and with a single precise blow knocks 𝐂𝐴𝐴𝐧 out on the spot. The other bar drunks also decide to buy the fight and go for Jinta, but they take the biggest beating of their lives. After cleaning the floor with everyone's faces, Jinta warns they need to make 𝐂𝐴𝐴𝐧 vomit up to his soul to get that poison out of his body. That's when Akitsu appears in the shadows. He was there the whole time, giving discreet support for the protagonist to end the bullies. A few hours later, we see 𝐂𝐴𝐴𝐧 waking up at Yuso's house, still kind of groggy. He realizes Natsu spent the night taking care of him and starts apologizing for all the atrocities he said while possessed by alcohol. Natsu, acting with enviable maturity, says a drunk's words don't hurt, and she knows deep down he truly loves her. Yuso enters the room furious, spewing fire from his nostrils because of the shame, and warns this is 𝐂𝐴𝐴𝐧's last chance at the shop. The boy apologizes to everyone and mentions something disturbing. Every time he looked at the 𝐂𝐭𝐴𝐧𝐿 last snow sake bottle, he felt an inexplicable hatred bubbling inside him. In another scene, Jinta and Akitsu talk at the protagonist's house about these macabre rumors. Akitsu confirms the famous sake is directly linked to cases of family members killing each other throughout the city. It's no coincidence Jinta's neighbor turned into an aggressor overnight. The alcohol seems to be a catalyst for tragedies. Akitsu reveals he's hunting this drink's origin, and the two leave to investigate. They try to find a local vendor to put the squeeze on and get information, but they find the guy dead on the floor. The place is empty of alcohol, and they conclude the drink makes people completely lose their reason. Suddenly, two demons that were hidden attack the two, but Jinta and Akitsu deliver a crossed attack and send the creatures to the devil's lap instantly. They think the monsters were attracted by the sake's smell, which only increases the mystery. Later, Jinta arrives at the owner's restaurant and sees some drunks treating Ofu very badly. The protagonist tries to calm tempers, but since the guys don't cooperate, he distributes punches. The bizarre thing is that even getting beaten, the alcohol's effect makes the guys get up like zombies. Akitsu intervenes using a magic clamshell to create an illusion. He makes the drunks see Jinta running away scared, leading the aggressors away from there. Jinta asks how he did that, and Akitsu explains his shells allow creating selective mirages, choosing who sees what. After the scare, the two order noodles as if nothing happened. Natsu appears saying she needs to buy sake for her father, but Jinta gives her a checkmate. He tells her to warn Yuso to stop drinking 𝐂𝐭𝐴𝐧𝐿 last snow because there's something very wrong and dangerous in that drink. Natsu thanks for the advice and leaves. At night, Jinta and 𝐂𝐨𝒄𝒊𝒆 meet with Yokata, who brings fresh information. She discovered a distributor named 𝐂𝐴ZE is responsible for spreading the poison throughout Edo. She remembers a guy called Misokichi, a warehouse owner who already asked Jinta to eliminate demons before and suggests they visit since he always says the sake comes from a divine source. But what really shocks Jinta is when Yokata mentions she saw a beautiful blonde woman walking around there. Jinta freezes because this is the exact description of Susune in her demonic form. The next day, tragedy knocks at the door. Jinta's neighbor finally loses his humanity and transforms into a complete demon, murdering his own wife in the process. He attacks Jinta, but the protagonist, with a heavy heart, finishes the neighbor with a single yarai sword slash. Meanwhile, Yuso continues drinking at his house and Natsu tries to convince him to stop. But the old man is disappointed with everything that happened with Senge and only wants to get drunk to forget his problems. That's when the anime shows us the scene everyone feared. Susune talking with the merchant about Yukin's last snow's success. Hours later, Jinta and 𝐂𝐴ZE confront the distributor 𝐂𝐴ZE, who's on cloud 9 thinking he's going to become a millionaire with full stock. The protagonist draws his sword and threatens the guy, demanding to know where the resupply comes from. The merchant, trembling with fear, confesses the sack sprouts from a natural spring on Mount Oyama in Sagami, and he just goes there to bottle the divine water. The guy is so greedy he doesn't even care about the blood trail his product leaves. 𝐂𝐴ZE suggests destroying all the merchandise, but Jinta, possessed by rage upon hearing about the blonde woman, almost loses control. He grabs the guy by the shirt to finish the job, but 𝐂𝐴ZE stops him with a punch, reminding Jinta he can't go around killing humans no matter how trashy they are. The climate between the two gets tense, but the objective now is clear: Mount Oyama. Jinta takes a deep breath and thanks 𝐂𝐴ZE for having stopped him from going ballistic and ending the merchant's life right there in the middle of that blind fury. But the relief lasts little, because the guy, possessed by a greed that no longer fits in his chest, starts downing his own sack stock desperately, acting like a crazy lunatic because he thinks the two are only there to steal his precious merchandise. The climate gets heavy on the spot, and the two boys need to run out of the warehouse because the man's body starts suffering a bizarre and disgusting mutation. He's transforming into a complete demon right before their eyes. Jinta looks at the scene with a mixture of disgust and sadness and tells 𝐂𝐴ZE straight. He explains every human being carries a seed of hatred hidden inside, and by drinking that cursed sake, this seed receives the necessary fuel to flower violently, leading the person to the extreme of losing humanity and becoming a beast thirsty for blood. The newborn demon lets out a roar that makes the walls tremble and goes for the protagonist with everything. Jinta tries to counter the blows using his experience, but both he and 𝐂𝐴ZE notice something scary after crossing the first blades. That monster, despite having just been born, possesses fighting power that doesn't make sense, being much stronger than the common demons they usually solo out there. Jinta grits his teeth and realizes the masterstroke behind everything. He realizes the blonde woman, his sister Susune, planned every detail of this trap, predicting sooner or later someone would come investigate the drink's origin and would have to face this improvised boss. Remembering his sister's face and how she's using others' suffering to reach him, Jinta starts emanating a hatred aura so dense, 𝐂𝐴ZE notices right away and asks if his partner is still in control of the situation. The protagonist quickly deflects with his heart beating 1,000 times per hour because a terrible thought invades his mind. Yuso is also an avid consumer of this Yukin's last snow sake, which means at this hour, Natsu might be running mortal danger inside her own house. 𝐂𝐴ZE, realizing Jinta needs to resolve this family pending and protect the people he loves, takes the battle's front and tells the protagonist to leave now. He guarantees he'll hold the giant demon alone and tells Jinta to run to save Natsu. The protagonist gets a lump in his throat, thanks his new friend's loyalty, and accepts the mission. leaving in a sprint through Edo's streets as if life itself depended on that speed. While Jinta solos the horizon, we see Akitsu activate his final trump card. He performs a legendary invocation of a warrior emperor called Tung Sun Song, a samurai from the past with overwhelming spiritual power who materializes with shining armor and a flaming sword. The greed demon, without thinking twice, launches against the invocation in a power clash that makes the ground crack, beginning a fight of epic proportions. In a frenetic scene cut, we follow Jinta running desperately toward Natsu's house. He jumps roofs and crosses alleys with his demonic arm pulsing and the sacred Iarai sword vibrating in its sheath, sensing time is running out. The protagonist knows that if Yuso loses his head because of the sake, nothing will remain of that family that welcomed him in fear. We reach the end of another anime. If you made it this far, make sure to subscribe to Curious Nerd channel for more epic content like this. Hit that like button, share with your friends who love anime, and drop a comment telling me what you thought of this insane story. The Curious Nerd community is growing and we want you on this journey with us. See you in the next video where we'll dive into more incredible anime worlds. Peace out and stay curious, nerds!